Name drop.
Hey, welcome to the Name Drop 2024 Thanksgiving episode, sponsored by The Art of Shaving.
Derrick,
Levasseur.
first name drop on the show. So
Season 16, Big Brother, and I never had seen an episode up until I watched my my amazing celebrity friend Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC.
Oh yeah, give me
Do
a
we all
name
hit the
drop.
buzzer
He did
when
celebrity-
names drop?
Whoever
In
just
the
hit it.
beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
You did, and I gotta tell you, it was the most anxiety I've ever had watching Big Brother or
Yeah, how do you
watching
think
reality
we
TV
feel
shows.
in the house?
I've hosted reality TV shows. I can't imagine what you all went through. We're going to get to your episodes in a second, but to watch one of my closest friends on doing reality television,
Yeah.
I remember texting him. I'm like, my hands are sweaty. I don't know how you guys do this. And
I
yours
just-
was
you didn't watch
insane.
Me, you didn't watch me on Gone Country and do the same thing. You didn't watch me on Mission Man
What
Band.
about the Big Brother house makes you like? You guys are dicks.
What?
No, you have. It's a game. It's
Yeah.
all a game.
I think so. I worked undercover for 6 years. And
You
I
were a
think-
narc.
I was a narc. And,
21 Jump Street.
21 Jump Street. And I thought that Big Brother would be easy.
Yeah.
I really did. I said, I'm on the cuff to maybe get murdered every week. This is going to be a walk in the park. But once you get to about day 30, day 40,
Yeah.
that's what it was for me.
Yeah.
Something happens, and I don't know what it is. I think it's just human instinct where you're detached from the world and you don't have this human interaction that you're used to, where you become almost like an animal.
Yeah.
And I think you forget.
How many days were you in there?
I was in there 100 days, 97 to be exact.
With no contact with the outside world.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Wow.
No books
Cell
except the
phones?
Bible.
You don't
No
get a minute
books,
with
no.
your family.
What was it? No books, no motor cars. Well, not a single luxury. Like Robinson Crusoe, we were primitive as can be. What's that from?
Gilligan's Island.
Good call. So what was, and again, but this is my time to use you as therapy because the people, the production, CBS, amazing.
Yeah, they were great.
Like everybody that has anything to do with the show was over the top amazing. And I have had discussions. Being on Celebrity Big Brother is a way different beast than being on normal Big Brother.
Oh, yeah.
The two are, you really can't.
Well, and the reason I say that is because we got pampered a lot more than they did.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we had our phones up until the night before we went in the house.
Yeah, no.
You guys
We
were
were-
sequestered, right?
Sequestered.
We were
I was there for 5
sequestered.
days.
Yeah, for how many?
5 days.
Where'd
so
they
in
put you
total, the Burbank Marriott. right
Yeah,
across the
great
street.
hotel.
Yeah.
Big plug
I mean,
for the
So
Burbank
for 5 days,
Marriott.
you couldn't talk to anyone. You
No.
couldn't talk to your wife. You couldn't talk to your
nobody.
And you just had a daughter, Tinley, at the
I
time.
had a daughter, Tenley. Shout out Tenley. And I had a DVD player with all the Big Brother seasons. You get all the food you want, all the drinks you want. No access to TV and some access to some DVDs. That's it.
Wow.
I had
we
some
had-
Play-Doh too. Play-Doh and coloring books.
We had
Actually.
TV. I brought my Xbox from home, so I had my Xbox. I had some gym equipment. We were not at that hotel. We were at a little swankier, nicer hotel. But I also found out afterwards that apparently some of the other cast members didn't even get sequestered.
I believe it.
Like some of them were out performing, doing stuff, and I'm like, am I the only idiot that went through this process of
Why
it?
would they sequester you, especially if you're a celebrity? Everyone knows who you are when you walk in the house.
Well, the premise is that you're not supposed to know who you're playing against. But I
Yeah.
was just going to ask you that because clearly you knew who you were going in with if you had access to your phone.
Yeah, I knew. The only person I knew I was going in with was this guy named Todrick Hall.
Yep, Todrick. Yep.
See the way I did that?
Yep.
This
yep.
guy named
Yeah.
Todrick Hall. He's the only one because
You had beef with him.
he apparently told everybody he was going into the
Well,
house.
he's a super fan. Todrick's a super fan.
And I would say I'm a big. I don't know if I'd classify super fan, but very close to super fan, because your season, was. I joked with
It
you
was
the
all
other day.
super fans, though. Like, I feel like your season 16, that was, 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were just a fresh-faced 20-year-old kid.
I wish
21
I was
maybe?
20. No, I was 30 years old.
You were 10 years ago. I just did the
yeah.
math.
yeah. I mean, if you want to say that I'm 30 right now, I'm
No,
good with
you were
it.
born
I'm
February
good
3rd,
with it.
1984.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah. Okay, yeah, I just did the math. Yep, you were 30. Yeah, you were fresh, but you were a cop. No one knew it. You told people that you were a Parks and Recs coordinator.
That's right.
So they believed that.
They believed it, and they believed it because I was at some point. One of the most common tactics in undercover work is to try and derive from things you've actually done or experienced because you're less likely to trip up. So I always kept my real name when I was undercover, my first real name at least. So I would say like Derrick, and I'd make up a fake last name. But like I would always pull from things that I had experiences with because you were less likely to get tripped up by someone saying, "Oh,
this is crazy." So I've always wanted to know like a real life 21 Jump Street.
Yeah.
So you did high school stuff, right? You went into
college, high school. I didn't do too much high school. College.
Did you date girls undercover?
So my first undercover operation was when I turned 21 years old. It was on my 21st birthday. I get the call. I wake up. I'm hungover. Chief of police calls me. I've only been on the job for a year at this point.
Wow. Okay.
I got on when I was 20. And he
this
says,
is in Rhode Island.
This is in Rhode Island, and I think I can say it now. I'm going to say it anyways. Actually, I'll leave out the name of the university, but long story short, he calls.
Well, it's Rhode Island. There's probably not a lot of universities.
There's a few.
Was it Providence? URI?
Yeah.
Were you a Ram?
You know what?
He doesn't want
Plead the fifth.
He doesn't want to.
But I will say, I think it was in the papers anyways. But
Are you a cop? Because you have to tell us.
Yeah, that's true. That's another thing. They always
say
think
that.
it's a thing. Like,
No.
But he basically says, listen, there's this group of individuals at the school, Smithfield PD, which that gives a little bit of a hint what university it was, remembers you from the academy. Some of the guys talked about how you looked. Would you be interested in doing it? So I said, sure. So I literally got out of bed, rolled in, enrolled as a college student, and was there for about a week and a half pretending to be a college student.
What did you do differently? I mean, you were obviously college student age.
Yeah, nothing.
Did you have like frosted tips or?
No, I didn't have the Justin Timberlake at that point. No, I didn't have that at that point. Hey. You guys missed on that one.
Yeah.
You do what you have to do to get it done. You just don't want to lie about it afterwards.
Did you have relationships with people? Like you get made friends with people? And then you had to tell them at the end, right? Hey, I want to let you know I'm Donnie Brasco.
I did get some people at the gym afterwards that I was like, oh, I know you. And I'm like, oh, big brother. Like, no, you arrested me. But I did have that happen a few times. I will tell you, as far as the friendship or building relationships, there were people that I actually got very close with undercover because, and I always say this, not every person who commits a crime is a bad person.
Right.
Sometimes it's good people who just make bad decisions. And believe it or not, one of the relationships I built with someone actually saved my life because I worked undercover. I arrested this person. Years passed by.
First and last name?
Yeah.
No.
I would never say their name. I'm indebted to them for life. But they end up in prison for an unrelated charge. And while they're in there, I was in charge of the narcotics unit at the time. We had like 5 guys. We were killing it. We were out there hitting houses every week.
Yeah.
So this guy in the prison decided, hey, listen, Derrick's in charge of the unit. If we kill him, they'll shut it down. Fortunately, this individual told this entire plan to this guy who I had arrested at one point, but was fair to him, his family, and everyone else involved. He went to a correctional officer and said, hey, get this message to Derrick. They're coming for him. And that was what saved me. Ultimately, we figured it out. We were able to stop it, and honestly, a major reason why I'm here right now is because of that person.
Wow.
Man, wow. I thought it was crazy when fans attack. You know, this is like, it's a whole other level. They're coming for you.
They're coming for you.
They've got some autograph books waiting in the weeds. This is like way different.
So when you got the call to do Big Brother, I have to say this. Woman of certain age has seen every episode of every Big Brother possible. She's also a super fan. That's her right there.
What do you think, real quick, sorry to interrupt, but what do you think your demographic is?
For as far as now or what it was in Big Brother?
Definitely as far as now, because I know you do a lot of the true crime stuff.
Yeah.
But what's the Derrick demographic? Like, you see somebody, you're like, oh, I got to be careful.
I don't think I ever have to be. I don't have what you have by any means. I think when I first came off Big Brother, it was a little crazy. It was definitely an adjustment period. But now I would say 18 to, I don't want to age anyone. I would say 18 to 45.
18
women,
to 20.
Mostly women.
No, it's women of a certain age.
Yeah.
Mostly women. I mean, my demographic on our analytics for like YouTube and for our podcast is like 90% women.
Because of what you do with your investigative work. No, it's okay. What you do with your work, you do your homework. So when you went into being the Parks and Recs guy on Big Brother, I wanted to ask you the same question. You had to like do some research when coming in, trying to figure out what made you decide to say I'm a Parks and Rec coordinator, and how there are some moments where I feel like if it's a social experiment, you've got these guys that are in there bottled up, they're without their phones, they're going crazy, like that guy Donnie. I think it was
Donnie. Yeah.
I love Donnie.
Shout out Donnie.
Donnie. Hi, how are you doing? That's fun. That guy was the best voice.
Yeah, I love Donnie. I love Donnie now, but I picked up on him early on. I knew
Do you think he was laying it on?
He was laying it on thick.
Yeah.
That is who he is.
Yeah.
But he was laying it on thick, and after the show ended, you get to see people in their element when the cameras aren't on. I'm like, I knew.
Everyone liked me. I had a great time.
That to me, and obviously the difference in our seasons that we had was, I couldn't go in and saying, "Hey, I'm Chris from Parks and Rec." You know, I went in and said I was Joey Fatone. They believed that, but it's a lot different, you know, because you walk in and you're looking around, everybody going, "Oh, that's Carson Kressley. I know who he is." The only person I knew walking in was Chris Kattan. He was the only one I knew ahead of time, but everybody else, the housewives, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Mariah, the skater.
Todd Bridges?
Didn't really know. Todd Bridges I knew, but a lot of them I knew, so we couldn't fake any of that. But how was it for you going in there and meeting the representation? You know, it's like dating. They always say when you first date, you meet somebody's representative, and then I always joke about the real world. And then when people stop acting fake and start getting real, you know, the real world, because that's what Big Brother is.
Yeah.
It's the first 2 weeks.
It's a popularity contest. Everyone's got this mask up.
You're meeting all these people's fake people, and then while you're living there, and not to mention, you're not just meeting their fake people, you're competing in something that has a lot of money to it. If it was just competing to get a sash and a crown, it would be different. But the money changes people. How was that for you, coming out and seeing those people again? Like seeing them and going, this person has nothing, was nothing like they were inside the house.
I will say, and I'm not just saying this to be diplomatic, most of the people were pretty close to what I saw in there. And I will say, being a fan of the show is advantageous because, you know, just like any other show, they typecast. Everyone has a certain role. So not only was I sizing them up, but I was figuring out what character they were from previous seasons. So I knew who was the jock, who was the supermodel, who was the person who just came there to cause chaos, who were the people that I had to actually be concerned with. And it was only about 5 or 6.
In the 26 seasons of Big Brother, and this is from one of the smartest people I know, which is Monta.
Shout out Monta.
She watches Big Brother like no other. She said that you are the most intelligent player that's ever played the game.
I appreciate that. I don't think it's true, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, she said that you played it. I mean, you won $575,000.
Yep. They've upped it now.
Does that piss you off?
Yeah, a little bit.
What is it now?
It's $750 now.
$750.
They still
You
haven't
can
gone
use
to
that
the
extra
million
too,
now.
yeah?
I mean, listen, with taxes,
Yeah,
it would have been nice.
Yeah.
I would take the extra $250,000, wouldn't you?
Yeah, 100%.
But I mean, I appreciate that. I think social awareness is one thing. There were definitely people on the show, Ian Terry, one of them, who had like a 150 IQ. But yeah, I went in there. I wouldn't necessarily say I was the smartest person, but I have a pretty good judgment of people.
At any
and
given moment.
Ian, wasn't Ian the one that kept...
He was on season 14.
He kept running around and when the cameras or something and was like doing just weird stuff.
Maybe on All Stars, that because he came back.
Yeah.
And he was
on like boobies.
And he had a problem. He was losing himself a little bit on the All Star season.
But that's kind of a normal thing, right? Because you guys are sequestered. You lose your mind. You don't know who your friend is. You don't I can't imagine. That's why I was texting him when I was watching this. I'm like, hands getting sweaty. I can't believe I'm actually watching this shit. And then I'm going, oh my God, Chris, don't do that. And I'm like texting Chris, and he goes, yeah, you had to be there. But you not having a conversation with your son Nash, not being able to call your wife.
Brutal.
I mean, how many days were you there before you were? Was it? You were like 8-9 episodes, I think.
We had a week ahead that we were sequestered, but again, we had phones, so I could FaceTime. But it's still different, you know. You're not there. You're away from your family, but I think at total I was maybe in for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It messes with your head
or something. It messes with you. I needed like therapy for a long time after that, and I'm sure with you guys, like,
you just had a daughter.
I can't at that point. Yeah, she was 18 months old. But I think when people hear 4 weeks, if they don't know Big Brother, they go, 4 weeks isn't that bad.
4 weeks is 18 months.
4 weeks 24/7.
Yeah.
There's no break. There's no like, oh, the cameras are off, the show's over, you can go home and see your family. No, you're trapped in that house with the same people that are trying to change, that are trying to take life-changing amount of money from you. Now you got to sleep next to them.
Yeah.
And that's what really gets you is the downtime, because you're only doing competitions. You had an accelerated season.
Yeah, we did.
But we were only doing like 1 or 2 competitions a week.
Yeah.
And we're in there 24/7. So there's just a lot of sitting on the couch, looking up at the
CBS
sky.
trying to build a story.
They're building a story behind the scenes,
Yeah.
calling you in for a diary room session, but 23 out of 24 hours a day, you're sitting there with nothing to do.
Do you know what Mark McGrath told me? He read every label.
I'm on this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I've missed
You're doing
one.
well. Yeah.
He read
I got the
every.
concept.
You got it.
I got
He
it.
read every label on every piece of food
Yeah.
that was in the house and almost had it memorized because the boredom. And we did have an accelerated
you doing
season,
that.
but you have to remember one of the bad parts about having an accelerated season is with the normal seasons, you're in there for a long time, and you do most of the competitions in the yard.
Right.
So they have this yard with a pool
Is
and
it the
all this
same
stuff
set?
in it.
Same set?
Oh, yeah.
Same
The
set.
studio
the
lot.
pool, all this stuff. We didn't have a pool. We didn't have a yard.
Yeah, your gym was inside too, wasn't
Our
it?
gym was
Yeah, I saw
inside.
that.
That's
Anytime
tough.
we needed to do anything, it was all inside, except for I think at 10 o'clock at night, they would open up this little crack area where you could go and just get a little bit of fresh air every day.
Go nuts! I couldn't do that.
It was
we,
bad.
we moved. We did one of the, and I don't want to give away all the secrets of the show, but one of the competitions we had was when you walk out and had to go down around the back in this big soundstage area, and we walked out, and if you would have seen every celebrity walk out and just go,
Yep.
because we got no vitamin D, we got no sun at all, and that was the first time we'd seen sun in like 2.5, 3
So
weeks.
not only is it a social experiment, and you can't say anything, you're a cop. At any given moment during your season, did you think
Undercover cop.
I'm going to say, I'm going to tell these guys I'm a cop. I'm going to beat the shit out of them.
No, I definitely
Did you want to, like, in your mind?
I'm not, again, it sounds like I'm just being diplomatic. We
Yeah.
had a great season.
Yeah.
Like my season, it was one of the best summers of my life. Not just because I won. It was an opportunity to hang out with a group of people that I would otherwise never
And
get to
Cody's
hang
one of
out
your
with.
best friends now,
Cody,
right?
my daughters call him Uncle Cody.
Yeah.
Like it's not Cody, it's Uncle Cody. Frankie Grande, shout out Frankie.
Yeah.
That's someone that in my personal life I may not come across. We talk all the time now. I consider him family. Like there's
Yeah.
people that I've met from that experience that I will have a relationship with for the rest of my life. So truthfully, we
It was
really
casted really well.
our season is considered boring because we really didn't have a ton of drama. There was really no moment where
No
I wanted
hookups.
to hurt. There were hookups, not to the full extent.
Wait,
like there are.
who?
Him and Cody.
Nikki and me and Frankie.
You and Frankie?
Yeah, me and Frankie hooked
I
up.
knew
Oh,
it.
yeah.
It was the back rubs.
Yep, it was the back rubs. You're in there 90 days.
Yeah.
You know, at
hey,
some point-
Hey, I had Carson.
Were you,
Yeah.
were you calling
Carson,
him Ari
and we're
by the
married.
end of,
By
like,
the end of it, I was
season?
like, hey, listen, man, I'll be whatever you want me to be. Just stay in bed
You
with
know
me.
the funny thing about that too was I remember that season Ariana hadn't broken yet.
No, it wasn't. She wasn't that big.
She
yet, no.
wasn't
I
who
got her
she
name
is
wrong.
now. She wasn't who she is now, but she hadn't really broken yet. And Frankie was running around all the time going, "Oh yeah, Ariana's my sister." And people at home were like, "Who's that? Like, who is it?" Now they go back and you're like, "Oh my God!" Because
Yeah.
Trying to
you
be
know,
one of the
I
biggest
will
yeah.
say
of all
we
time,
got
yeah.
her CD for one of his HOHs, his head of households. I was like,
Yeah.
we talked the lingo for Big Brother, and there's probably people like,
Right,
what the hell are you
right,
talking
No
about?
idea
right.
what that was until I started
Right.
watching
Head of
it.
household,
a lot
but-
of them are fans of ours, and they
They've
know
seen
I
it.
was on
but
it.
for
They
the
know
people who don't know, you win the competition, your HOH. But we got Ariana's CD, and I was like, this is good.
I
Yeah.
didn't know you were this big of a super fan because when I started watching it, it's like one of the best moments of your life was becoming HOH, and then I think
Yeah.
you got a key or something.
Yeah.
that you were super excited
yeah,
about.
you get there's a lot of those moments. Like I said, I went in, the money, I don't care.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I really don't. If you know me,
Yeah, I
you
don't think
know.
you're hurting for cash.
Yeah,
You're doing
I'm not
okay.
hurting. I'm not
Yeah.
hurting. I wanted to go in and have fun.
I mean,
We
bye is bigger than like it's.
Yeah,
probably,
thanks, Deadpool.
Dude, I mean, that is what a win.
Yeah, that was
What
a
a-
big.
Wait, who
What a
was
win.
in that? Who was in that movie?
That was a big win. Ryan
Reynolds,
Cabrera
baby.
And who else?
and
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Grant.
But I mean, I was thinking about you when that came up. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, not again that you need it, but my daughters
Yeah.
have perfected the dance
The
at this
bye-bye
point.
dance?
And it's like, oh my god,
Me
this dance,
too.
this Deadpool dance is so cool. I'm like, you don't even know.
Deadpool. But
I-
this is the joke that we have now, because it now that the kids, because it's a TikTok thing and all
It's
these
a
kids,
thing.
these kids, and I'm always on my feed going, oh my god, and I see all sorts of people doing it. It gives me goosebumps again.
It's like old hat for him. We went to Millennium Studios in Nashville, and I tried to learn the dance.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I was Deadpool for Halloween, right? I am Deadpool for Halloween.
So am I.
So are you.
And everyone was like, you know the dance? I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I don't. But it's funny because you talk about like seeing people and all this stuff. Like for me, a Big Brother fan, you know, I'm a normal person, and I was a huge fan of NSYNC. I'm still a huge fan of NSYNC. And then I see you on the show, on the live feeds, being like, oh, Derrick's my favorite player.
Yeah.
You know how surreal that is for me when
Yeah.
I grew up watching him, and now I'm watching
Everyone
him,
knows your name.
and he's talking
Yeah.
about me like he knows
Yeah.
me, and I'm like, dude, I didn't even know he knew me. I existed. It's pretty cool.
No, dude. Well, being a fan and you know, now that we're friends, I joke about it with you a lot that have always been my favorite. The show itself, like we went back. I can go back years, and your season as well, where we do like fantasy football, but it's Big Brother.
Oh yeah,
What?
that's a
Really?
thing. That's a big thing.
And
Really?
we would have friends. You know what? I actually think Lance.
You would team up like this is going to be your person.
No, you
This
draft
is-
you draft people
Yeah, you
before the
draft
season starts.
and and that person's gone.
we
you're done.
actually
You're
we
done. We
actually
get
would
points
just,
for if they win an HOH.
we would just
veto.
pick out of a hat.
You do this? You play
We
this
would
game?
just we would
I
just
never did it, but I know people who do
You
it.
guys are
Yeah.
dorks.
Yeah, we would pick out of a
Brother's
hat.
it's a
and you get
lifestyle.
who
Wow.
you get. And when you get your people, you look at the people and you're like, all right, this guy looks athletic. He could be good. But then you think to yourself, yeah, but sometimes they get rid of the athletes first.
Yeah.
And it's such a mind game. You know, I definitely want to talk to you about that. Because like you said, you went in going, all right, this guy, she's the good-looking one. They got
Yeah.
the ditzy blonde, whatever. The funny jock. Can I say ditzy blonde?
Yeah, you can. It's not canceled.
All right.
You can
Not
say
canceled
Sure.
yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But you already knew going in, being a super fan. I knew going in. I was on with celebrities. You know, Lamar Odom had zero clue of where he was at. You know, let alone what game he was playing. And I think only me, Todrick.
He was great TV though.
Yeah,
Dude,
amazing.
Catan
TV.
was great TV. Eating the cake.
Yeah, Chris.
I love that guy.
Chris is awesome.
But he just,
You know,
and it got to him. I mean,
Definitely.
my whole point is like, it got to him where he was like, I'm going to leave. I can't do
yeah,
this
well,
anymore.
he also, I think there was some issues because he was in his room, and the point of the game is there's a lot of social game to it, too.
Yeah.
He had social
And there's a
anxiety.
lot of, like, there's a lot of stuff you don't see on TV.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because there's times where you'll see two people, like on the show, you'll see them like screaming at each other, I'm going to kill you, you suck, and all this stuff like that. And then you go to the live where you're waiting and they're getting ready to vote somebody off, and they're sitting next to each other just talking. You're like, I just saw them wanting to kill each other. But you're like, yeah, that was like 6 days ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
And life happens and all this stuff happens. But going in and you seeing all these characters and you basically doing stuff like that as a career, what was the worst part of all of it? Like what being a super fan, walking in going, oh, it's going to be tough to be on camera 24/7. You know, maybe some things that, because I can tell you for me a bunch of things that you
Bathrooms are
don't
off
think
limits,
about.
though, right?
No,
No.
not for them.
No,
Wait, bathrooms weren't
For
off
us,
limits?
it
It
was.
that's
For us, there was no camera in there.
Yeah, there's a camera right in the bathroom for a couple of reasons.
Wow.
One, there was past seasons where they took like a toothbrush of someone else and scrubbed the toilet with it. Yeah, that actually happened. And then also people were leaving notes or like messages in the bathroom and exchanging information while in there. So it's a camera, it's a small monitor in the control room. I've seen it. But yeah, the first couple of weeks I was like, should I sit down? Because it's like looking at you this way. So it's looking at your back if you're pooping. But if you're if you're a dude and you're standing up peeing,
It's like you were
they
in
got
a
a full
joint.
show. So at some points at the beginning, I was like, should I sit down and pee? Be just
Yeah.
be Curtis.
I
Curtis.
hosted a reality show where it was a dating reality show, and the girl would go on dates. But in her contract, it stated that the bathrooms were off limits. So
Yeah,
she
no.
would take her
You
dates
sign your life away.
back into the bathroom. And I remember one of the producers is like, "We're not allowed to have visual, but we do have audio. You're going to hear some of this?" And I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah. No.
So, yeah.
said
Nothing.
yes.
When you
Yeah.
sign up for Big Brother, you literally
Sign your life
sign
away.
your life away because they know you're just a normal civilian. Everyone wants to be on the show. If you're not going to sign it, someone else will.
Who
They
did
got a person ready to
But
replace
what was
you.
that worst part? Like, what was
for me,
it for you?
For me, it was what I said earlier. Everything else I kind of anticipated. it was the downtime. I knew what I had to do strategically, but once I did what I had to do for that day, build whatever relationship I had to build, now there's another 16 hours. And I'm sitting there thinking about my daughter, thinking about my family, and just really wanting to be home.
There was a moment where your daughter sent you art of her hands and her feet.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And as a dad, and I know you too, like, you get choked up anytime your kid sends you something, gives you something. And I was like,
'cause it
this is
sucks.
probably going to be the moment. Because I didn't know you had won yet, because I wanted to make sure I watched everything first. And there was a moment I was just like, this guy's going to break down. He's probably going to leave the show.
It wasn't even the letter was bad. The handprints were bad. But what they did with me is they brought me in there around day 30, day 40. And producers, they're trying to figure out what makes you tick. And they, you know, I was kind of smooth sailing for me. I hadn't even been nominated up to that point. And they were like, is there anything bothering you? Are you missing your daughter? Like, she's probably at home. She's growing every day. And I started crying in the diary room.
Start rolling.
The next day, the next HOH, for the first time ever, they decide to bring in videos from our families from home. And Tenley comes up on the screen and says, I love you, Dad. And I bawled my eyes out on national TV. Yeah. And I said to Julie in that moment, nobody picked up on it, but I was like, you got me, Julie, because I knew exactly what they were doing. They're trying to break it. And it's good TV, but it kind of motivated me, because at that point I was like, all right, now you're gonna have to kill me to get me out of here.
Because you're on there with a whole bunch of other people. And I have to ask you this. Chris, you were on there with other celebrities, so there's like a lot of egos in one house.
Egos.
And
your season was crazy.
It was all egos.
I don't know how you didn't punch Todrick. Is that how you say his name?
It's a big lawsuit.
How I don't know how you composed yourself, because you said nothing but kind things afterwards.
Well, because you go into it, and I can tell you my biggest fear was, don't make a joke that can be taken the wrong way. Don't say the wrong thing, because it really,
you handled yourself well.
It really is. You break down, and after a while you forget the cameras are going.
The cameras dissolve into the walls.
I'm like,
you forget
but with me, and I was only, like I said, only in there 3-4 weeks. But with me, I always, in the back of my mind, was thinking cameras, thinking things, because we walk in there with a legacy or with something on our back. I walk in with 4 other guys, that I can't do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, make the wrong joke, whatever. So when it comes to stuff like that, it's like, you just have to.
He didn't say it, but he wanted to.
Yeah, NSYNC. Yeah.
It's obvious. No. but I walked in there, and you have to be conscious of that, and you have to understand that people are watching your every move you make, the live feeds, whatever it is. They're watching everything, and there's kids that have looked up to us, or looked up to things you do. So
and especially going there, and you got all that ego, but you also have attractive women in there, and you're married, and you got to make sure. Hey, I hope this doesn't come across like I'm flirting.
Right, it's like what you just talked about, Derrick. It's like I had Carson. Yeah. I'm like, Carson, I could use a back rub right now, whatever. It's,
I got jammed up a couple things, because I had a girl named Victoria in there, and we're in there 90 days, and we were like giving each other massages and stuff, completely innocent.
Yeah.
But optically, it doesn't look
She was
great.
married too, right?
Victoria wasn't, but the thing on my season, I guess you'd call it the controversy, was Christine, who was married, was massaging Cody. Who's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Was massaging him a lot, and that
he is a good-looking man.
That actually became a thing. Zingbot zinged him about it. Her husband did a segment that they showed where he was like, "Oh, I bet Cody better be rubbing me like that." It was a real thing.
Yeah.
They actually got divorced after the show because
Are you serious?
of it. Yeah.
Wow.
And Christine got I can tell you, it was not the way it was portrayed on TV. There was definitely an attraction there, I guess. I'm attracted to Cody, but it wasn't going any further than that. But the way they framed it, it was difficult for Christine.
Does he know how you feel? You can tell him right now.
Cody knows I love him. Cody knows I love him, and I would absolutely date him if he wasn't married.
It also doesn't help when your biggest ally in the house is also a former Playboy playmate. And
that's right.
Oh, Shayna.
Shayna
Moakler.
Shayna married
Miss USA.
Married to Oscar
Rhode
De La
Islander.
Hoya, and
she's a Rhode Islander.
She is a Rhode Islander, yeah.
Yep.
Which is funny because, oddly enough, and this is something else. Like, and I'm sure this is when I was going through therapy and things like that after the show, but it was so crazy because I felt such a connection to Shayna, and it was only because I think the second day she came up to me, we were in the kitchen, she's like, "Hey, let's work together. We'd hung out in the same circles. She's like, let's work together. And I'd already had Misha, who was running the house.
I forgot Misha Tate was in there.
Yeah,
She won that, right?
Misha,
Yeah.
Misha saying, hey, let's work together. And I'm like, I freaking adore Misha Tate.
Yeah.
I knew everything about her. I'm a big MMA guy.
But you didn't listen to her.
No, I did.
You
No,
did?
you guys work together pretty tight.
I totally listened to her, but I also saw that her side of the house was kind of bullying the other side of the house. And there's stuff, like I said, there's stuff that goes on. There's stuff that you don't see.
Yeah, unless you're a feed watcher, that might not make the show.
And I don't want to, kind of really get into the details because they're still all celebrities, and I'll still run into them at different things. And, but one person really picked on another person who was Chris Kattan, making fun of him, and that's when I drew the line, and that's when I dropped it down. I'm like, I came on this show to protect the people getting bullied, and now I got to do it. And I stood up, and the minute I stood up, it was like, because I don't know how you were or how it is with you guys, but I felt like when I was on the show, I was like walking on eggshells with everything you do. I mean, it got to the point where, and again, I don't know if it's different with celebrities than it is with normal, people, but with me, it was like I walk into a room and it'd be like right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, smile at this person, smile at this person, don't say this. How do you brush your teeth? Everything, because everybody's looking for something to go. You brush your teeth with your left hand? Mm-hmm. Chris brushes his teeth with his left hand. Oh, and then everybody jumps in. Oh, because they want to have something on you.
Dude, at no point were you comfortable in that house?
Not at all.
The only time I saw you comfortable was as soon as you exited.
Yeah.
Well, you live a very different lifestyle, I imagine, compared to Big Brother. I mean,
for sure.
I did as well, but for me, it was in a way kind of like an upgrade in some ways because it's like,
well, you were 30.
Anything you want.
I'm 30.
Anything you want.
No responsibilities, and I wasn't someone who had been on camera a lot like you. I mean, when did you start NSYNC?
95.
I was 20. I think I was like 23.
I mean, you've done it basically your entire life, your adult life.
You get used, right? You get used to it.
So me, I was like, this is something new. Where for you, you're like, yeah, I've been on TV before.
I also did 2 other reality TV shows.
Oh, okay. But was it like, what were the other shows?
Before that, one was called Gone Country.
Gone Country.
Where
never
they took.
But you weren't uncomfortable. You were in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's not like live feeds and stuff. Like you're not living there.
They have cameras on you all the time. So we all lived in a house together. It wasn't as crazy. It wasn't as dramatic as Big Brother. But then I also did this show, which I don't even like to plug, but I did it for a buddy of mine from Boston, Rich Cronin.
Shout out Rich, R.I.P.
Yeah, shout out to Rich Cronin. We did this show called, wasn't supposed to be called this when I agreed to do it, but it was called Mission Man Band.
With Brian from
Brian
Color Me
Abrams
Bad.
from Color Me Bad and Jeff Timmons from 98 Degrees. And they basically put us in a house.
It's like a super boy
band, which wasn't that super. But, but that was at my house, but there were still cameras 24/7. So it wasn't as extreme as Big Brother, but I'd already done 2 reality shows where I lived in a house where they were filming everything you do all the time. Just not in the bathrooms, not in the, craziness. So I know, all that was like insane. And the experiment of Big Brother and getting to understand you guys and where you guys come from and how different it is, they really, like, I had therapy. I was telling a friend the other day about it. I was like, the night I got back, my wife had all my friends waiting at the airport. They had like the big head. Like, I'm like, man, this is what I thought it would be like. This is so cool. But I got back to the house and everybody came over because they were like, they had T-shirts with my face on them. They were doing like parties, watching the show. And I get back there and they're like, my wife's like, yeah, we're having a little party. Everybody wants to say hi and stuff like that. And I'm like, get them out of here. Get people out of here.
It was
I
interesting.
haven't seen people, but I'm like, get them out of here. And I had, but I had like if you would have been there and you would have walked over with somebody and been like, yeah, talking in a little. I walked over to 2 of my friends. I'm like, what the are you guys talking about over here? Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, the game or something. I'm like, because it messed with my mind.
Anxiety.
How was that like coming out? Was there times?
I want to get back to that with you.
Yeah. Did you find that in your experiences coming out of it, there was a lot of drama that you still carried over from the show?
I wouldn't say drama, but you do have that level of anxiety where anybody who's talking or
Trust.
looking at you, you have to remind yourself that you're not playing the game anymore.
Right.
It is an adjustment. I went right back to work when I got out, but it is easier to get over it when you win. I will say that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I will say everything you're saying right now, people complain that I don't want to play again, or that it would take a lot for me to play again, because they don't realize how difficult the game actually is. They think it's fun. There are parts that are fun, but it's a major strain on your mental stability in there, and to do it, you have to be fully committed, because if you go in there half-ass, you're not going to win. You're not going to make
even
it.
keel from what I watched.
Yeah.
I watched 40 straight episodes. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
So it was like
I went there to
binge
win.
watching.
I was a cop, not making a ton of money. I told my wife, I said, listen, I have to do this. And she said, but why? I said, because if I go, I'll win.
You came across very authoritative. Like you were this figure that people kind of looked up at.
That was the plan.
And that's what you got. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, hold on. Derrick's talking.
Yeah. It worked out. It could have gone another way. I could have made a mistake, and I could have been the first one out the door. The first couple of weeks is a popularity contest. I thought I was in trouble. You got these extremely good-looking people, and I felt like I was back in high school where everyone's like, we're doing the beach. We have to do the topless like beach shoot, and I'm sitting there 30, pale, not looking like half of these people, and I'm like, I'm getting voted out because everyone's drawn to each other, mostly on like physical appearance and like charisma initially, but once I lasted a week or two, I was like, I got him.
Do you find that kind
You
of
knew it, yeah.
that helps though too? Because another crazy thing that you don't realize about the show is they have what they call floaters, and a floater basically is someone that doesn't really do anything, but they
Quiet,
just
under
get
the radar.
by.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because part of the game mentality is, let's vote out the person that I think's going to beat me.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
they kind of eat their own. And what they do is they go, oh, if somebody goes in, you're like, oh my God, that guy's going to kill everybody at the comps. He's going to do all this stuff. Well, everybody's thinking that, right? So the first time that guy doesn't win, they're like, let's put him up and get him out. Or if there's big drama in the house, oh yeah, then because everybody starts pointing, if you just lay back a little bit, and you could, because you were the perfect example of how to do it the right way without, because floaters don't win either.
No, they get booted near the end.
Floaters could get booted at the end.
Yeah.
This last season that just happened, this girl Mackenzie would have won the game if she didn't. And that was your thing with Cody,
Our
right?
season was
But that was your thing with
scarily
Cody
similar
because
to
it was very similar.
He could have taken Victoria.
And tell us why. Tell us why.
Why? So basically, in my season, Victoria, it was myself, Victoria, and Cody in the final three. Cody wins the final HOH. He has the option to evict me and take Victoria, or to take me and send her home.
And that comes down to explain too. That comes down to a vote.
Yeah.
The people that are in the jury vote on who they think played the better game.
Yeah.
So there's always a floater in the final three.
You always want to take a goat with you, and not in a good type of goat.
Yeah.
You want to take someone who hasn't
so
done
what
much.
you want to do is Victoria, bring her along, and you're going to win hands down because everybody goes, she was a floater. You won the game,
That's
right?
what really
Now go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead, Cody.
Well, Cody ultimately took me, but that goes back to the foundation you set the entire season. My goal was not to find alliance members; it was to find friendships.
Right.
It's a lot harder to backstab a friend.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
someone you genuinely care about. If you're just
That's
a number,
true.
I'm cutting you.
Right.
But I made a conscious effort to.
That's the best advice in life. Wait, can you just get 1 second? I'm going to write this down.
Well, I mean, but even for jury, it's not about what you say; it's how you make people feel. So when I was talking to someone, I was trying to find genuine commonalities with them, so that when they were deciding whether or not to work with me, it wasn't about, oh, this person's good for my game. It's about, no, this person is someone I'm going to be friends with for the rest of my life.
Is that something that you were thinking of before going
Absolutely.
in? Or did someone say, hey, I'm going to give you some advice? This is
How
what
much
you should
easier
do?
would it be to cut someone you barely know?
Yeah.
It's a pragmatic thing.
Dad.
But now
but me and Cody, I knew his family members, I knew his friends. We had plans afterwards, and it was genuine.
Yeah.
This wasn't like something I was doing just for the game, and that's why these relationships continue to this day. There were people in there like Cody and I consider him one of my best friends, and you think that's weird because I met him on this game
You guys
show.
went through something together.
We were together 24/7 for 100 days. Add those hours up and compare it to any best friendship you know.
Yeah.
So this is
It's
what I
pretty
have
close.
to know.
It's like us in the band.
For both of you guys.
Exactly. It's just, I mean, even more so. I
We're
mean,
at the final episode, and now the people that you've been on the show with, don't be nervous.
I got emotional there.
Cody always
we're
brings
at the
it to you.
final
Cody.
episode, and you've got your jury, which are your peers,
Yep.
the ones that have been voted off, and they're deciding your fate. They're deciding whether you get $575,000, which you could use because you're a new dad,
Yep.
and you're a cop. You're not getting paid that kind of money.
No.
So now you know it's a popularity contest. I thought it was going to be like you guys going to do Rochambeau or something for it. No, it's these guys voting you.
Yeah.
Like, so you knew that at that moment you won because you made friends with a lot of people.
I knew I had a good. The thing that I thought would get me the win is that I went the whole season without being nominated, and up to that point, it's been done since, but up to that point, nobody had ever done that, especially with that many nominations. On my season, real quickly, it's usually 2 nominations per week. My season, for the majority of the season, it was 4 nominations per week.
Wow.
I was never nominated,
Yeah.
not one time.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where I knew I could get up there and say that, and there's nobody in the history of Big Brother who was able to say that up to that point. Couple that with some HOH wins, building those relationships. I thought I had it, but you never know because you don't know what they're saying in the jury house. For example, when I was giving my answers, Jocasta, who was very religious, stood up and said, "Oh, you're fake. You were fake praying." It wasn't true, but that was her perspective on it. That was how she perceived me. So she didn't vote for me, and she was able to convince Donnie not to vote for me as well. So that could have spread through the house, and I could have lost just as easily. So you just really don't know.
Well, and that's why what I was saying before about the show. If you don't really know the show too well, his season is what just happened on this last season.
Almost identical.
And basically, you had 2 good players, right? And then you had a floater that was in there.
Shout out Cam.
Shout out, yeah. Shout out Cam. Sorry,
Shout
Cam.
out to my dogs at the crib.
Yeah.
That's what he said every week.
And you use the word floater in a good way.
Yeah,
but
he
didn't
do
win anything.
I like Cam. As
I
a
love
person,
Cam.
He was not a good player.
But he's just a floater, meaning
Yeah.
he didn't win anything. He just kept being brought along
And
by
do you get
other
paid
people.
per episode?
yeah,
Yeah.
They
but
did.
it's peanuts.
Yeah.
It's peanuts.
But so in his season, it comes down to whoever wins the last HOH out of the 3 of you, because he picks who he wants to go up against and get voted out, right?
Yeah.
So the smart thing to do, if you want to win, take the floater.
Yeah, take the
because
floater.
everybody in the jury is going to go, that guy was a floater. You can see it. You're going to win the money, right?
Yeah.
Cody took him and lost to him.
Yeah.
So Cody said, "You're my friend. I'm bringing you with me because that's what we said all along." Did it and lost the money to him. So that's when you watch the show and you're like, those friendships that form are deep. Like I was
Family
comparing
game
it-
night at your houses. Oh my god!
Listen, when I
Can
went
you
to-
imagine?
Shout out to Family Game Night at
It's
the
like
house.
Monopoly with this guy,
Yeah.
with you too.
But
Jesus,
karma
you guys are
works.
distracted.
Karma works
Yeah.
because Cody went back on All Stars. I was supposed to be there as well. I decided not to go for multiple reasons. One's my kids were like, "You ain't going," but I had talked to Cody leading up to it. We had gone over everything. I gave him every single piece of information that I could give him to give him the best chance of winning because he had all the attributes. He just didn't have the social element of it yet. He was also a lot younger.
He's like 23, I think.
He was 23, 24 years old. He goes back on All Stars. I'm not there. He implements the strategy that I implemented on 16, and he wins. Not only does he wins by never being nominated, and he wins 7-0, which I didn't do. So he literally is the only person, in my opinion, who's played an actual perfect game of Big Brother.
Yeah.
Never being nominated.
And how much did he win?
He won $500,000 in the next season. They switched it, so he's even more pissed than I am. But literally, the next season they switched it. But he is the only person, in my opinion, who's played the perfect game. Some people are saying at this point that Chelsea played the perfect game, and I love Chelsea, but she didn't because she had been nominated. Even though it was only one time, that ruins the perfect game. That's not the definition of a
Yeah,
perfect
but
game.
is that? Do you think that is that's still the perfect game? Because we're talking about strategy here, and
But think
maybe
about baseball.
Maybe part of your
Perfect game or
strategy.
no-hitter.
Well, hold
They're
on.
different.
Hold on, though. Tell me this
a great-
because
yeah.
I will
you
tell
walk
you.
someone, it's
Yeah.
not the perfect
I
game.
will tell you, there was somebody on this season. Can I talk about this person because he's walking in
Yep.
in a little
Yeah,
while?
yeah,
I can, right?
Yeah.
So Tucker, to me, almost played an even more perfect game because he was so good. He just kept not like he goes, "Hey, put me up as a pawn," and they would put him up and he'd win and take himself down. But they always needed to put him up, and he was always willing to go up. If he would have ended up winning the game, could you not have said like he played a perfect game?
It's subjective. I wouldn't because I'm a stats guy.
Right, you're looking at it like, no, that was an actual.
You're looking at their record.
That was a walk, so that doesn't count.
Being nominated is not what you want in the house. I don't care what the reason is. When you're nominated or you volunteer to go on the block, pawns can go home.
That was strategic. We could sit here now that I'm a fan.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but we can sit here and talk.
talk
Big Brother.
You got to get into the world, man, because people on the outside would not appreciate it.
We're best friends, man.
We are.
Yeah. See, that's what you do. Is be friends with them.
Yeah.
So they don't kick you off. So when I call you answer.
I'm voting you off immediately. And you're not even a threat.
So you and Cody have gone on. To do your own podcast, correct?
Yeah, Winner's Circle. I didn't do it this year. I have 2 other podcasts: Crime Weekly, Detective Perspective. It's True Crime Podcast. Nancy Grace's Crime Feed. That's the show we do in New York. That's on Discovery ID.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. So I took a back seat with Winner's Circle because it's a big commitment. It's 3 times a week.
Yeah.
It's a lot. 2 kids. I'm busy.
How great does that feel, though, from going from Big Brother to be able to parlay? Because you're doing PI work now?
Yeah, I have a PI firm since 2017. I got lucky. I'm one of the few people who was able to, and I didn't plan on it. Like I said, I went back to work, but I got a show afterwards called Breaking Homicide for ID after Big Brother, and it's just kind of grown since then. And that's why I always tell people, and it's not like, I'm not trying to sensationalize it when I say it, Big Brother changed my life.
Yeah.
Literally changed my life. I would not, and I'm not saying it to stroke you guys, I would not be sitting here with you if it wasn't for Big Brother. I wouldn't be in the position I am in my personal life if it wasn't for Big Brother. So we all have a lot of important decisions we have to make, but no decision other than Big Brother has had the impact that it's had on my life.
What advice
you work with
would
Martin
you give?
Sheen? Is that correct?
Yeah, he's my guy. I like Martin
What
Sheen.
advice would you give?
I love Martin.
I want to get to that.
There's not a lot of them, but what advice would you give to these guys that come off the show? And, first of all, like I said, maybe some therapy, maybe figured out, maybe like the Hawk Tua, where it's like, man, something happened to me, but I got to take that 15 minutes and stretch it out and make it work as a career. Like what would you tell someone like that? Or because it might not even just be Big Brother, it might be Survivor, it might be anything where you get that moment. How do you hold on to that?
I think what worked for me, and I call it the Pauly D effect. Pauly D was on Jersey Shore. What is he famous for now other than Jersey Shore?
DJ.
But what was he doing before Jersey Shore? He was a DJ. He stayed in his lane. That's what he does. He didn't try to fit a square peg into a round hole. You have these people who go on these shows and now they want to be actors or singers, and they weren't beforehand. That's probably not going to work.
If you're a chef, you're going to get a cooking show.
That's it. If you go on the show and you have a plan where you're a chef, go in there, highlight those attributes, maybe somebody will see you, and you'll get something afterward. The only reason I'm successful, because I did not plan this beforehand, is because I stayed in my lane. I'm passionate about crime. I'm passionate about victim advocacy. So I just continue doing what I've always been doing. This bell's getting me.
Okay, so
just on a bigger platform.
This is where I was getting to Martin Sheen. Did OJ do it?
OJ definitely did it, in my professional opinion.
You did a show. What was it? It was
Is OJ innocent? The missing evidence. So I went on Big Brother, came back home.
R.I.P.
Had an agent reach out. You like that move?
That's a good one.
Had an agent reach out and say, do you want to do shows after this? And I said, no, I'm good on reality TV. And he said, shout out Harry Gold, he's still my agent.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do other reality shows. He said, I'm not talking reality, I'm talking true crime. And I said, what is that? He said, just stick with me. Flew me out to LA. I signed up with him. Calls me a couple months later and says, there's this PI who's made a lot of money, wrote a book proving that OJ didn't do it. We want to bring you in, and we want to bring a forensic psychologist in to go over his book and go through what he found to see if he's right. Long story short, he wasn't. Made good TV at the end there, where I tell this guy who spent his entire life
on this
doing
book.
this, and I basically disproved his theory because he was promoting this time card from Jason Simpson, the son, who he believed did it, and I was able to prove that the time card, the side he was showing, there was actually 2 sides to that time card, and he didn't know that because he never contacted the manufacturer. I did, and I basically showed him that the week he was showing everyone to say Jason wasn't at work was wrong. It was a good TV moment. We had some fun, and it parlayed into Breaking Homicide and other things from that.
So is this like, is Sherlock Holmes like one of your most?
Wait, we've never shouted him out.
Shout out Sherlock.
And by that I mean, if you've ever read the books or ever done anything, he is the guy that started the whole CSI, all these things where as an investigator, some of the fun that I'm sure you have is walking in and looking at a room and seeing it completely different than everyone else sees it.
Yeah.
And is that the attraction to what you do now? Because it seems like even when you're talking about these, it's the details and it's the little things that 99.99% of people look over, and it's that one thing that you go, almost, what litigation lawyers do too. They have to figure out a way that their guy's innocent. Well, you're looking at it like this, look at it like this. That's got to be part of the enjoyment that you have that ability to Sherlock Holmes it and go, well, the reason that is because you can't latch a key this way. Everyone knows. It's almost like doing brain teasers, but in real life.
Yeah, I think this is the one element of my life where I have OCD, and so having OCD is huge as an investigator, because if that little, whatever you call that table, moves an inch, I'll be able to tell you when I come back in here, and it'll bother me until I move it back.
Right.
But being in a crime scene or looking at the overall information you have about a case, if something stands out to me, I'm able to identify it. And it's also just being pragmatic. I don't get emotional about it. I always want to, root for, be a voice for the voiceless, but you got to keep working at it. Got to keep everything in perspective.
You're now a celebrity private investigator. Do you ever have
I
those
don't know,
moments?
I'm a celebrity private
Yeah,
investigator.
you're a celebrity. You're a celebrity now.
Yes.
Derrick,
Yeah,
celebrity.
ask the ladies here. They all...
I would say, okay, how it's got to be weird. Like, you're being hired to go check out, make sure that some guy's wife is.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore.
You don't do that anymore because
No.
you're in the bushes. Like, hey, that guy from Big Brother's in the bushes taking pictures of me.
Yeah, we don't. I'm not probably gonna stand out to some, especially in Rhode Island. It's a small state.
Yeah.
I'm one of the few people who've gone on television. But no, with my PI firm, we do a lot of civil cases, wrongful death lawsuits. We'll do cold cases. But what I'm really focusing on now is investigative genetic genealogy. You familiar with that at all?
Yeah.
Okay, so we do a lot of familial searches. Basically, what we're
Stop
doing.
lying.
I have a coffee company called Criminal Coffee. Shout out, little plug there.
Oh, yeah.
We it's a true crime themed coffee company, but we donate a portion of the profits to solving cold cases. We actually just funded our first case. It was 60 years old. It was called the Preble Penny case. It was unidentified Jane Doe. At the time, they identified this skeletal remains as a 50-year-old woman. We come in, Criminal Coffee funds the case, and through genetic genealogy, basically pulling DNA from the bones, you're able to identify the person. What we found is all these years, they've been looking to see who this woman was. And in fact, when we did the genetic genealogy and used the genealogist to go through it, we realized that Preble Penny was actually Preble Peter.
Oh, the guy.
Wow.
So
Was a
within
guy with no Preble penis, apparently.
So very well. Originally, they just did forensic anthropology. They just looked at the bone structure and said it's a female. Well, we come in, and now with the advancements in science and technology, our team came in. We funded it. It's very expensive. But within weeks, we were able to identify this person. His name was Albert Frost. We found living relatives of Albert Frost. He was a military veteran. He had some mental health issues. Probably was hanging around with some wrong people. But now the investigation could move forward because we've identified Albert, could figure out who he was last with. And that's what really gets me excited.
Wow.
That type of stuff.
Now,
so that's what we do now.
Tell me this, though. Then, do you think you could commit the perfect crime?
I think I always say this: if criminals were smart, we wouldn't catch them. Most of the time, criminals make mistakes, and my job as a detective is to identify those mistakes. So I do think there is a such thing as a perfect crime. That's why 50% of our homicides go unsolved. Some of it is just because the investigators working it are not.
Why does
up
it
to
take
snuff.
so long? That's like the Idaho murders. That's
Yeah.
like almost going to be 3 years by the time.
Well, there's a
it goes to
judicial
trial.
process, and it's about your constitutional rights. Like Brian Koberger allegedly committed this crime. I personally, professionally, believe he did, but he has the right to a fair trial, and everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So forensically, you want to go in there, you want to analyze everything, you want to dot all your I's, you want to cross all your T's, and as an investigator, my job isn't only to build a case against you, which is inculpatory evidence, it's also to identify if there's any exculpatory evidence which would rule you out. So I got to play offense and defense as a detective, because I know at trial, the defense is going to find those things.
Right.
And I got to be prepared for it. So it takes a long time to prepare for these cases. And then there's obviously the judicial process. So it can take time, but ultimately the number one priority is getting it right.
This is like Law and Order.
Dude,
like this is all the
he's
stuff
wicked
that
smart.
you see all this stuff all
You
the
thought we were
time
just
when
gonna come in
it's
here
like.
and talk Big Brother, didn't you?
Yeah, no, this is what I wanted to get into, dude. I'm gonna tell you,
he
man.
goes, wait, so I sat through 36 episodes of Big Brother and we could have been talking
No.
true crime the whole time?
40 episodes.
40
Okay.
episodes.
40 episodes,
Listen, I
and
love
then
Big
your
Brother.
episodes.
Part of my life,
Yeah.
changed my life. It put me in the position I'm in, but it's a blip on the radar.
Would you go back?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I shouldn't say 100% no, but based on what we've talked about, there's a few things. And I just did another podcast where we talked about it. One, the duration. It's too long.
Yeah, too
my
long.
daughters are 11 and 8 now. They're changing every day. I don't need the money as much as I did back then. And I will also say this, and this isn't a knock on CBS. They can get people to go on that show for peanuts. Mm-hmm. I'm not in that position anymore. I'm not going to risk everything I've worked for and put my entire life on hold for $1,000 a week.
You mean like I did?
Well, but here's the thing.
Basically, you're
and
saying
I'm not
if I
trying
were
to-
you, I would have never done
I
it.
bet you if I searched you up right now, you're doing okay.
I'm doing all
You're
right.
doing okay.
Doing
The
all right.
residuals are there, I'm sure. You're doing all right.
Yeah.
So you can do something like that for the fun of it.
He did background checks on us before.
Oh man, yeah, I know exactly. But I mean, when I now I'm trying to build something, and if I go away for a while, that could go away.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to do that. But I will say there are other shows that I'm interested in, and we'll see what happens.
Do you go to Martin Sheen's house?
We ain't that tight, but I did work with him pretty closely on Is OJ Innocent because he was very good friends with the PI that was on that show, and I got to meet Charlie as well. It was during
Was that during the Tiger
It was
time?
during a time. It was a little bit after it, but he was
Okay.
still in that mode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, some of the things that I get to experience, that being one of them, because of this show, is just it's surreal.
By the
Even-
way, we didn't give the Sheens a little.
yeah, we can give a shout out, but like, yeah, my life is weird.
Who else have you rubbed elbows with because of the show that
Oh,
you
got
were?
a name drop.
Yeah.
That you
That's
can't
the name of
believe.
the
So
show.
my
that's
best
why.
one, I can tell you my best one for
Yeah.
sure. I'm a huge MMA fan. Built some relationships with people who are connected in Las Vegas.
Misha Tate.
Not Misha Tate. I haven't met her, but long story short, I wanted to see John Jones when he came back to fight.
Oh, yeah.
Called this person who I'm very close with now since Big Brother. She met me through Big Brother. She's very close with Dana White. So we go to the fight. I'm sitting 6 rows from the cage, and all of a sudden she goes, "All right, we're going in the back." Walk in the back, go into this suite, and it's me, the person who brought me there, and Dana White. So I sit
No
down with Dana
way.
White. I'm having a 15-20 minute conversation with
He's
him.
from
He's from
Boston.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
We immediately connected. But here's where the story gets really good. So people start to come in there, and I'm seeing a bunch of celebrities, a bunch of TV stars, actors, and other UFC fighters. And then all of a sudden, I see... what's the receiver? I'm going to mess the story up. Long story short, I see
From
a
where?
receiver from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the main receiver there.
Oh, Mike Evans.
Mike
Mike
Evans.
Evans, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I see Mike Evans, and I go, oh, it's Mike Evans. And then right next to him, I see this beautiful man who resembles
I know
Tom
who-
Brady.
It's Tom.
was
that
Tom
is-
Brady?
and that is my guy. That is my ultimate pinnacle,
Tom
number
Brady?
one person.
So you big. Pats
I don't
fan.
ask anyone for pictures.
Yeah.
I grew up 20 minutes from Gillette Stadium.
But you named your daughter Peyton.
I named her Peyton. That is true. Different spelling. But he's the one celebrity
I
that
named my son Backstreet Boys, so it's great.
Shout out back.
Hey, Backstreet.
But long story short, I go up to him, tell him who I am, tell him where I'm from, and they say you never want to meet your heroes.
Yeah.
But fortunately, nicest guy in the
Yeah.
world, took a photo with me. It was the highlight. He's my Facebook profile pic right now.
He wasn't nice to me.
No?
No, I'm kidding. He,
Okay.
he was nice. We met him the year after he won his first Super Bowl, and it was
Yeah,
me
me
and
too.
my uncle, and we're big Steelers fans, and
Oh.
we went up and we're like, dude, we're the Steelers fans, whatever, and we just were all yelling at each other. It was
He's
hilarious.
probably-
Really
I
nice
think it
guy.
helped that I was standing next to Dana because he was like, "Oh, you must
Oh,
be."
right.
It didn't hurt.
Right.
I was in the crew, but
Tom
Mark
Brady.
Wahlberg met him there.
Marky Mark?
Yeah, it's really an eclectic group of people, but I don't deserve to meet any of them, so it's cool. I got to present Knockout of the Year at the UFC Awards with Daniel Cormier, and he was drunk. Before we got up there, he says, "If you say anything that makes me look dumb, I'll punch you." He was joking, but these are things that like.
Yeah.
I'm just a normal dude from Providence, Rhode Island, and I'm.
Yeah, but hold on a second. What you got to realize is anybody who's anybody is just a
it's
normal
true.
dude.
I realize that more now.
that came, and that's me as well. I grew up, really poor, trailers, whatever. I didn't even understand fame. Then when you're in it, suddenly you start to go, this is nothing like I thought it was going to be.
No, you're right. And behind the scenes, when the cameras aren't on, there are celebrities that I've met where I'm like, man, I'm surprised they are where they are.
Yeah.
I met Tom
Yeah.
Brady at a Knicks game. And this is like back in the day when I could actually sit front row, and it was one of the coolest moments ever. Because
you still can sit front row. You just
gotta
can't.
buy the ticket.
Yeah, but they have like this area at Madison Square Garden where because you perform there. But it's like where all the elevators are.
I mean,
that was a flex.
So where all the elevators are and all the celebrities are waiting. It was me, David Blaine, Nikki Hilton, David's girlfriend, some model at the time, I forget, and then it was Tom Brady, and everyone's like, who the fuck is this guy? He was there with some of his players. He just won the Super Bowl. No one really knew him. And I remember looking over at Nikki and I said, there's no way this guy's, he's like one and done. It'll be it. And
a lot of people thought
I was like,
that's his mentality,
I'm
though.
like,
Even now, he still thinks, they're doubting me.
Yeah.
The dude's psycho.
Yeah. He's got the Mamba mentality. He's got that thing that Kobe did, and you hear the stories about the legend of Kobe Bryant, when they would go and play in the Olympics, and all the other guys are enjoying whatever city they're in, going out, coming in at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and Kobe's walking out to go practice.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that's what makes these guys. That's what makes
and they're
Tom
like
Brady
handsome.
to go.
You remember Nikki said she's like, oh, and he's really good looking.
Even now, when he's an announcer, they were showing some behind the scenes. He's in the control room, like, let's go, boys, big day today.
Yeah.
He's like, anything he does, he wants to be the best.
Yeah.
You gotta admire that.
This is something that we do at the end of our show. I don't know if you've watched it or not, but Chris gives us singing lessons.
Oh God!
Why do you say that?
Because I suck,
what we
and you
like to
always
do
let me
is
know
we like
that.
to scare the guest into thinking. What did we tell the barbers earlier? I was like, so you do know the second verse, right, of the song we sent you? And they're like, what? And I'm like, no, I'm kidding. It's 2 notes.
It's our show theme. It's just name drop, and
that's all we do.
And he leads it. And obviously, I'm not a singer, and I try,
neither am I.
but I get nervous about it. But we do it
My
all.
palms are sweating now.
Yeah, palms are sweating.
Knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on a sweater already. Mouth spaghetti.
Should we try this? So
let's do it.
1,
It's
2,
easy.
3 goes.
Yeah, we just go name drop. That's it.
Name drop.
That's it.
But we do it.
He's got tune.
Oh
tune.
God! Now
something you don't
now
even
we
have.
do it in sync.
As my grandma said, you couldn't carry a tune in a bucket.
Looking at the camera.
No, you
Yeah,
can.
look at the
Okay.
camera.
Yeah,
We'll
like
look at
right
the
there.
camera.
Yeah.
Ready?
1, 2, 3.
Name drop. I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was good. We're going on tour.
I think I'm ready.
We're going on tour. You can be the engineer.
Nice. Dude, it was a pleasure to have you.
Do you ever drive a bus?
Likewise.
For sure.
Do you ever drive a bus?
Appreciate it.
Man.
Name drop.